All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Unlocking Radio Secrets. Every minute matters in improving your ratings. And with me today, I have Dr. Ed Cohen, who's an individual that many of you know, have read articles from and about over the years. Ed is a well known researcher, really recognized as someone who understands ratings more than most because of his years as a corporate researcher with the original Clear Channel, working at Arbitron, Indy Nielsen, and then Cumulus Media. One of the things that I'd like to say at the front is that if you have questions, you can drop them into the chat. And as we wrap up, we will try to answer those questions for you. As anyone else comes in, please make sure you're muted so that we're able to have the conversations without anyone being interrupted with noise coming in. There was a time many years ago in a faraway place where you wrote down the time that you started listening to a radio station and the time you stopped. Oh, wait, that still happens in some markets. For the PPM markets, Spot GPS is an amazing tool that unlocks secrets that enables you to increase ratings just by doing a few things better. Now, maybe you're in a diary market and you're watching this today. There is value here because it really does make one focus on how every little thing we do matters. Back in that faraway place when people were first writing down writing down the time they started listening so we could grow ratings, we actually lied on the air about the time. Because you had to get 5 minutes in one quarter hour and 5 minutes into another and transition and segue those quarter hours, we would jump from 12 after, 13 after, right to 16, 17, 18 after. It was called the rubber clock. I don't know that it ever worked, but we thought it did, and we did it. The reality is today, a lot of people don't even wear watches to tell time because the time is with us all the time right here. And oh, by the way, social media changed the ability to lie on the air because now people see what's happening everywhere. And so it's a new, more natural, real window. And if we can do next slide, local issues, real solutions. Now, the general thinking is that programming equals ratings and it equals revenue. And I can tell you, having been a general manager myself, I have seen sales departments that outperform the ratings. I've seen programming departments that far outperform the sales department, and therefore ratings and revenue don't necessarily connect. But in the real world, in a perfect situation, we know that bigger is better. And the bigger your ratings are, the greater revenue you will generate. And next slide. And so, those of you that remember this movie on any given Sunday, De Niro's character, who plays a head football coach, is talking about how in life you find out that it's a game of inches. So, football is like the passive measurement we have with Nielsen. Because in either game, football or life, passive measurement, the margin for error is so small. And his character says, one half step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're everywhere around us in the game, every minute, every second. And the same way in passive measurement, that the margin for error is tiny. If you're a little late with a spot break, a little early with a spot break, then you don't get the quarter hours, the AQH that you deserve. Next slide. So this is where I'm going to introduce Dr. Ed. And by the way, the very best program directors can draw a circle, freehand, because they've done it so many times in their life. Dr. Ed.
Thank you, Mike. And you've seen this before in the sense of this is the standard bow tie stop set placement clock. A lot of stations have used this since PPM started. And so you've been used to it for, let's think back, 15 years or more. It's not a matter of whether this is the best or not the best with respect to your ratings, but whether it's being executed properly all the time. That's really what we're going to be getting at here. Is just as Mike was saying, we want you to earn all the minutes that are out there. And sometimes you may be leaving a few. Part of it is, and just as an aside, we talk about tenths of a rating point. Really, for sales purposes, that's what you're looking for. That's a rounded number. Sometimes it could be, you could be just a couple of quarter hours off of that next 10. You might be a long ways off. You may have just cleared the hurdle, but that's what we're trying to get you to here, is to be able to earn everything so that you have the best opportunity to get the biggest number you could get without changing anything on your error. Let's go to the next slide, Suzanne. Okay, so here's the advantage of Spot GPS. We're going to show you some of the benefits here. And Mike will probably jump in on a couple of them because I'll forget to say something that I should probably say. But we'll try to go through this and show what you're trying to do. One of the things is that Spot GPS lets you see what your air staff is doing if they're doing what you want them to do. In other words, you've got that nice clock we just saw. You want them to stop down maybe at 12 after and 42 after the hour. Well, are they truly doing it? Are they doing it early? Are they doing it late? Are they trying to get those extra minutes? Because again, it's 5 minutes gets you the quarter hour. That's how it works in the United States in the rating system that we have. And in PPM, they don't have to be consecutive minutes. Any 5 minutes within that clock quarter hour will earn you the quarter hour. So that's what we're trying to do with this and trying to make sure that you get all the tenths of a rating point that you can by using Spot GPS. Next slide, please. You may recognize this gentleman. He was a president of the United States for 2 terms. And one of the quotes that he was known for, which actually, oddly enough, is Russian, trust but verify. The net is you have people you've hired to do the job, and you trust that they are going to do what you've asked them to do, what you said here. This is what we want you to do on the air. But you need to verify, and the verification is what Spot GPS does, that they're actually doing things right. You have to trust your staff, but you need to verify that. And we all know that all of you are too busy to do it on a stop set by stop set basis. It's just plain impossible. So that's the Ronald Reagan part of it, oddly enough, on the night of a debate between the 2 presidential candidates.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide.
And I just want to jump in real quickly and say, and I can see, who we have on the Zoom here today, and Dr. Ed and Ralph Cipolla and Val Garris and I and some of the folks at Cumulus use Spot GPS, and it is a secret weapon. And what you're going to see is how it comes to fruition and increases your rating. When Dr. Ed said, it's an average and you roll up, if you have an average quarter hour rating of 0.3 and you take it out just one more decimal, and now it's a 0.34 that I can see. If I get that to 0.35, it becomes a 0.4. And what can 1 point, a tenth of a point rather, mean in a market? Ed, that can be millions of dollars in the biggest markets.
Exactly. And I had seen it enough times at Cumulus. I would take the numbers, I just take a look at it, and there were ways to back it out and say, okay, what did we really get? Oh, damn, or we might have used some other 4-letter word. We missed by just this much. And that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. You want to make sure that you're going to get all that you can get. Now, for example, here is one of the first uses you can see of Spot GPS. This is cluster coordination, obviously from the headline. If you take a look at the time, for example, within your cluster, if you have 2 stations that have similar formats that share some audience, but for whatever reason you've chosen to do that, What you don't want to have happen is if you go into a stop set on station A, and then somebody, the listener goes, okay, I don't want to hear the commercials. And they punch around, admittedly, not as much as they used to, but they still do it. And they go to another station, and maybe your cluster mate. Do you really want them to hit another stop set at the same time? First of all, this is what Spot GPS can show you. Here's just an example of two stations. We've given them fake names here, Magic FM and Mix FM, like there aren't any of those around. And you can see that one of them is breaking at around 20 some after, and again around 42. The other one is doing sort of a vertical bow tie rather than a horizontal one. So what we know is station A, if they go into spots, most likely you're not going to hear them on station B. It gets a little close there near the bottom of the hour, but you can look at Spot GPS. When are the spots showing up and be able to make sure that's when they really ran as against what you think may be going on. So that's what we're trying to do. Spot GPS lets you see it with just a few clicks. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now here's another feature. This is a heat map. And you can figure out pretty easily looking at these three fictitious stations that where they're trying to do their stop sets. Two of them are the standard, we'll call it a horizontal bow tie. One of them is the vertical going at the top and bottom of the hour. But we can also see percentages of how many times or what percentage they were stopping early or late. And it's pretty obvious that it's very hard to hit it exactly, but that's what you wanted to do. That's how you designed it, is that it should be exactly a particular time. So for example, we're looking at 3 o'clock and we look at that Z93 going across there. And at 13 after, 38% of the time, there were spots. I think that's an 8 because my eyesight isn't what it used to be. And then you see it up in the 70s and 80s and 90s where they were hitting it. But it's not always exact. And if that's what you designed as a programmer and said, I want to stop at, say, 14 after and get back into music or whatever you're getting back into at 19 after, you can see, well, most of the time it's there. And sometimes it's not, and sometimes it runs a little longer. And you can see that Alt 98 at the 3 o'clock hour tends to go a little bit earlier. They tend to definitely be in it by 11 after, 10 after sometimes, yeah, we got in a little bit early. So Spot GPS lets you see this and lets you see it easily. So you can answer these questions. Does your competitor beat you in and out of the spots? Do they air when they're planned? And it's very easy to do. And a lot of this is just point and shoot when you're using Spot GPS. Next slide, please. You can also look at minute by minute information. And again, down there where the little hand is pointing, you can choose just point and shoot, which I know even that's kind of old because that refers to old cameras. But it is sort of a very easy system to use. Now, one of the other things I want to point out here, and it was actually on the previous slide as well, one of the things you can see over here on the left, after you see this minute by minute, within the quarter hour, you can see the PUR. Now, some of you may refer to it as PUM, which I don't. The person's using radio, PUR. What's the audience available to you at that time? And you can see there it's done, it's set up for 25-54 adults, male and female. And you can see also how it ranks within the day from 6 a.m. to midnight. So you can also see, is there more audience at any given time or less? But it lets you see minute by minute information. You can see what the songs were that were on. You can see what the spots were, who they were for, when they ran, right down to the minute. And you can also see where there's just when it mentions non-spot, non-music content, that's usually talk. It could be any kind of, if it's a morning show, and I think you'll see an example shortly, that you'll see there's no music at all. That's part of it, is you get to see what's going on. We can't get live reads, live interaction between hosts, but you can get the rest of the information there, and you can see it minute by minute. So all this is exportable. All this can be saved. You can do it by minute. You can do it by hour, by quarter hour, almost any which way you can ever figure it out. And there can be, within Spot GPS, you can pick up to 9 stations that you'd like to look at. Next slide, please. Okay, here's again where I was going to mention the PURs, because to me, one of the things I used to do at Cumulus, and I don't know how many people actually do it. I mean, maybe they make assumptions. I used to average all the PURs, and I know it's called PUM, but It's just me because, just as a side, as persons using measured media, media is a plural, and all we're measuring is radio. But you can see even in this 1 hour, this 11 a.m. hour, how it goes 5-7, 5-8, 5-8, and then a 6-2 in the fourth hour. The 6.2, that's against the first quarter hour, that's half a rating point of more people that are out there listening to radio at that time. That's when you'd like to be putting your best foot forward, which is probably not a 5-minute stop set. But you can also see exactly where you have your spots set up, and you can see, am I putting them in at the right time? Should I move them? Should I have it set up differently to take advantage of how much audience is available to me at any given time? And that's, of course, within demo, you can adjust that as well. If it's this one's set up for adults 25-54, let's say you're a classic rock, you might want to look at men 25-54. If you're an AC, you may want to look at women 25-54. It's all available to you within Spot GPS. And you can look at multiple stations, all kinds of ways to look at it. So you don't want to get lost in it. What you want to do is be able to pull out data quickly and see, am I doing things to the best possible advantage? Again, we're not saying go change what you're doing in terms of your format or music or anything else. We're trying to say get everything in the right place and maximize what you have. Next one, please. One more feature here. You can see the amount of spots, music, and other material in any given quarter hour, and you can look it up to 9 different stations. You can see 9 of them there that have been put together. Any hour, 6 a.m. to midnight, and you can do it by day part, whatever you'd like. And you can also select something called content overlap, lets you see percentage of time stations A and B. But here you see, okay, at the 6 a.m. hour, and Z93 is more music intensive, and you can see they're running a music sweep, 6:30 to 7:30. There are no commercials in there. There's some talk, but it's a music heavy station. Q107, you can see, has 0 music, a standard morning show that doesn't play any songs. You can also see where they put the spots. The 6 a.m. quarter hour, averaging 14 minutes of spots out of 15 minutes. Guess what they're doing? If you tune in Q107 at 6 in the morning, you are going to be bombarded with commercials, but then you aren't going to hear any more until 7:15. This way you get to see this. You may know this, but you get to see this with numbers, and you can pick any of the stations you want in your market that are monitored, and we can take a look at that. So this is music sweep management. Now, this is done on a morning one, but we can do it with Spot GPS any time of the day, 6A to mid that you'd like. Next one, please. Okay, now here it is. I mentioned content overlap. Just one click and you can say, when station A is airing spots, station B, perhaps a direct competitor, is airing music what percent of the time? At the same time, they're running spots or running music what percent of the time? So you can get that. Again, it's just one click. You can do it by day part. You can do it by, you can go music. You can go whatever you want. It's just click and say, okay, I've got this. I can figure out what's going on. And if somebody's adjusted, if a competitor is adjusted to something you're doing, you can see it. And then you can make whatever adjustments you need to do. So you pick the date, pick the hours, you're ready to go. It's really simple to use. Once you get used to it, not much to it at all. Believe me, as somebody who uses, who's a big fan of the PPM analysis tool, which is one of the most complicated pieces of software I think you can use in radio, at least with for numbers like this. This is simple. Next one, please. Mike, I think I'm going to hand it back to you to do some of the wrap up here.
Yeah, and the fact that it says easy and intuitive is a little scary, because when you see all those numbers, if you're like me, it's like, whoa. But it really is easy because you can see where the talent are talking at the wrong places. You can see where the commercials have run or where they were supposed to run and they didn't. There's a lot of different things that you can walk away with Spot GPS. And Benztown presents Spot GPS. Now, there's other things that I think we should be aware of that are those little secrets that can help anyone. And that is that repeat tune-in is how you build time spent listening. You saw it in Spot GPS. The more times I come back to your radio station, the greater your ratings will be. You want to eliminate those tuneouts, which tracking, again, back to trust but verify, shows that if you can use a tool like this and crank that average quarter-hour rating up just this much, suddenly you roll over. Some companies and some stations that I consult who utilize this tool will actually sit and be able to say they're so close to rolling over that they will invest more money than perhaps they had budgeted because they now know that they're going to generate another $1 million or whatever it is from the average quarter hour increase. The other things that you can walk away with this and share with your air talent is the importance of teasing ahead. Tease with an incentive to listen so that your audience comes back after the commercial break or that they stick through the break and you're trapping them in the car because you had something so compelling to say. And next slide. Knowledge is power. The more collaborative you can be with people in your organization, the better the opportunity to have a brain that comes up with new ways to take advantage of a secret weapon like this. And this is what Spot GPS is. It's a secret weapon. It enabled us to have 36 months of year-over-year ratings at a big company where we all worked. And it's something that, if nothing else, you should have a direct demo on and take a look at. And next slide. The conclusion would be that our radio landscape has never been more competitive and the stakes have never been higher. Think about the fact that no longer are you competing with other stations up and down the dial. You're fighting for those little minutes with Spotify, Pandora, with Netflix and video, with podcasts, and with people who are just off. Every 10th of a rating point matters, and every quarter hour and every minute matter greater than ever. We continue to see the erosion of radio listening, and it's because people aren't putting in the time, effort, and energy to make sure their content and their product is maximizing Nielsen's rules. In every market, there's rating points that are going to go to the brand that best understands the measurement system and then fights for every quarter hour. And for radio stations and PPM markets, as you heard me say, Spot GPS presents a significant competitive advantage. You're seeing behind the curtain, and you know things that your competitor doesn't know. And next slide. Spot GPS is comprehensive, it's simple, designed to be user-friendly. Don't let those screens and those numbers scare you, because it's really easy to use. Right away, you can walk away and say, here are actions I can take. Spot GPS is a secret weapon that pays for itself many times over the year, and you can get it, use it to increase programming that increases a return on investment for your sales department. Dr. Ed, anything you would add to what I've just said?
I think you hit it, Mike. It's funny. I think we were talking about it the other day. Back in the Cumulus days, I used to occasionally do how PPM works as a presentation for talent, because most talent doesn't really get it. They know it's out there. And I'd say, well, this is why your program director, you may think your program director is crazy to ask you to do the things that he or she wants you to do. And in fact, they may be crazy, but there is a method to the madness. And this is just to reinforce, to give you an insurance policy, really, that your madness, which makes a lot of sense, you're trying to beat the system. We're all beholden to this one measurement system, PPM, and we're trying to make sure that we maximize the listening that is out there. We know a lot of strange things happen with the system, but we want to work it to our advantage. And that's what Spot GPS helps you do, because the talent may not understand, why is he or she, why is my PD making me do this? Well, there's a reason, trying to maximize the ratings, and that's what we're trying to help you with here.
And do we have a slide that shows if people are interested who they contact for Spot GPS? Is that a next slide? There we go. And so you can send an email to affiliaterelations@benztown.com or call the phone number on your screen and someone can give you more information and take you through in a personal demo. We just showed you a secret weapon and you may not grasp that, you may not realize it. But if you walk away and think about it, have you ever seen before what we just showed you? And the odds are no. And so I suggest you at least reach out for a demo to learn more about Spot GPS. Thank you, Dr. Ed, for joining me. And for all of you on the screen here who joined us, thank you very much. And certainly share this information with people inside your company.